Alright, so the final part of this question based. And so some of this is going to be around some of these what I call discussing the sticky. So these are some of these kind of sticky questions that we sometimes grapple with. And then it's going to be open up for whatever other questions that you have that I haven't covered. But yeah, so I want you to kind of think the other day. This is sort of not a think, pair, share, but as a small group, however big or small a group you want to form, through these kind of questions here. And because there's differing viewpoints from different people, and I just kind of want to just discuss this as a factor, and we'll talk about some of these, and this may spur up some kind of different discussion. So I'm going to give you like 10 minutes or so to kind of go over these. Pick 1, 2, 3, or 4. I said choose one, but choose as many as you kind of want to talk in as big or small group as you want.
Yes. After the second one. The third one. Fourth one, yeah. No, is it okay for them to be sent?
They get it.
I should have to run and start They should do this.
Hey, Greg, come on.
I don't feel included.
Oh, do we have to like learn the step from you? Come on,
And you're definitely not.
oh, not only is this step, by including it. Okay, get out.
I was listening to what you were saying. So number 2, I always thought that way down, but I was
It's okay once in a while.
still filtered goals.
If I see them on Facebook, I'm like, excuse me.
I don't call them out myself. Like, sometimes I just want to make them talk about this straight.
That's a good idea.
I think it's already been lost. What is your last year?
Oh, which one are you
Just for number 5.
Oh, I'm talking about 6.
Oh,
yeah.
Can't be on sure same mean thing.
Well, it should be no one less than. I agree with you.
You can just do whatever you want to.
In that case, you have to.
But it's, generally, if they shouldn't be respecting.
Either way.
If it's effective, they don't like
The last one,
I think it's already, it's
You already answered all of them?
Yeah, we did.
We don't all agree.
Oh, no, I'm not doing any sports speaking.
We're gonna call on you.
The last one, I think it's wrong.
I think it's already lost. I think it's better.
But then I mean, what's going to be the new model? There's
Yeah, the model
model
that
to
we
replace
I think they already have, we're already in transition. As it is, we're already in transition. It's already been lost. You ask the students, what reads such and such chapter, they'll look at you and say, it's already
But if you give them explanation, at least they have some guiding questions for them. Right?
yes. No, that's all it is. Great job in what you do. That's the only motivation.
That's the whole thing. Go off there.
Motivation is a great result.
Yeah, it was like on spot. He says no, I think.
I think it's okay. I mean, if it's too much, and not disturbing anybody else, what you don't want is someone who's failing. Someone who's failing coming to disrupt.
class and participating in
Just waste their time if they already know the knowledge, already know whatever.
just because we can do it doesn't mean they know it.
But
Because no, then we're giving them the message. No, but then we're giving them the message. We're giving them the message.
do not get the A's.
But we're giving them the message and it's just all about grades. We're just giving them the message.
But that's the message you already have. That's the truth about that's the truth about council school.
They have already learned the lesson.
Because all they got is the doesn't mean they're going to
But it's possible. It doesn't really come right on the basis. But it's possible. Like they already got this, they were able to
exactly. The ones that get the A's are I mean, I feel the whole class is like, it's like me going to my school and signing up for any launch schools will never show me
If they don't want to be there. Oh, okay. Minimize.
Next time we'll just ask them to go upstairs. Because
No, that's a really good point. You make
Oh, I know so.
the front of the class and teach each other. They're super great. They want to do it, but just take them and think.
They don't want to look stupid.
But on the other side, you know, I know that I want, and I was with the person like Stalin has it over and saying, "Oh, good job." I know you want to do it. I don't want to do it. Chinese, so I don't think it's possible. Well, then what's the answer? They don't want to do that. It depends on your perspective.
just checked the show being she's one of them. She's the one last time. She didn't get 70. She was at 79. Anything up to no, because she was slower. She was the goal. She was
He's scary. Like, he's like the least scary person. Maybe two students are scary.
No, because this one because one is more everybody involved certain
Okay, so now we're all kind of riled up with some of these kind of questions, so let's sort of discuss as a group here. So what are your thoughts? I mean, this could be individual, group, and also feel free to change the question if you want to change the question, look at it differently. This is more of just designed sort of getting these philosophies out, so you kind of know. You know, I've had these questions at different times, and some of you may have some of the same questions, but getting to feel what everybody else thinks can help us maybe gauge if we're on the right track or off track or whatever. So, is it okay to use grades as motivation?
Yes.
Yes, that's the only motivation.
Yes. And it's relevant, okay.
As long as you strike a balance.
Okay, so explain how you strike.
Because you don't want to overemphasize grades because it breeds. It breeds that whole mentality of is this going to be on the test? How is this going to affect my grade rather than the mentality that we want them to learn considered to be inquisitive. So yes, it's definitely motivating, but as long as there's some balance.
Well, first of all, are you studying the subject for the grade, or are you studying the subject that you're interested in? I mean, if you're in pharmacy, you should be interested in it.
Should be.
And if you're only there for the grade, it's the same. Grades come secondary if you're interested in this subject.
So then we look back, so then focusing back on us then, are we providing them, or is what we're giving them, is all of that important or super relevant to them? Maybe we'd say yes, I don't know. Is there some things that we're providing or teaching that, okay, I'm interested in pharmacy, but I'm not really necessarily interested in this part?
That's true of any subject, because if you're a chemistry major, you know, we've got different chemistry disciplines, and so not everybody who's a chemistry major loves organic. You know, God knows we organickers don't like decaf. So you have different interests within the discipline. We have students that are interested in compounding, they're interested in clinical, and they do better in different areas that they're interested in. That's again human nature.
But can we do a better job articulating why it is all relevant in the end?
We try to do that, yeah. I try to. But what was I going to say? Of course, synapses don't work like they used to. Something else I was going to say about it. It'll come back next year.
No, but the thing is, like, following up on that, you know, like, yes, you want them to want to have an end goal to get that A, to do well. But there's also the self-fulfillment. Like when Eric gave an example of doing this video, obviously they put extra time in because they take pride in their work, and it's not necessarily for the grade, but they get pride of, like, you know, if he laughs really loud, like, okay, I nailed it, and stuff like that. Oh, and maybe you'll get a higher grade out of it, but that extra little, you know, something that you didn't say pop, that's the thing that, you know, people try for. French.
We got that door.
I am Canadian. Hey.
You know, I don't think we can get stuck with thinking that we've got to make everything relevant. You can't make every single thing relevant And the whole goal of learning, I mean, is to want to learn. You know, if you don't want to learn, if you don't have that attitude, then sorry, you're on the wrong. You know, you just want to go make money. You got to learn how to make money too. It's, you know, it's I don't know if I knew.
No, but again, like, you know, what he's saying is like we drop that they're driven to their ultimate goal of getting out. So the thing is, for us to say, okay, yes, grades are important, but not everyone's going to have the mindset, hey, that's cool. You know, like we're unique, I think, you know, in the fact that if we see something that's not necessarily in our discipline, but it'll strike a chord, they can do that. And like that we're just nerds that way, for lack of a better word. And we cannot expect them to be that. But the self-fulfillment that they'll get for doing the job well done is what should try motivating them. And that's the part, you know, like, well, grades, yes, but also that, yeah, I nailed that. Whatever it was, like Shannon's poster session, I thought was phenomenal. Because it's like, they put pride in their work. Not necessarily for, you know, a combination of grade, but also because they want to look good.
Then if you're going to teach only what's relevant, you have to define what's relevant. And two, I'm going to make 3 points. The second point would be that are you then just going to teach to what's relevant to what's on the board exam? Okay, well, some people might. You teach to the test. So you got to figure out what's relevant in the area. And then the third thing.
It is good one.
Jim, stop it too.
What's a good number for you?
Wait.
Is my name Lynn Perry?
What is it?
I'm not sure if expecting them to appreciate learning just for the sake of learning is unrealistic. I know that's something for me personally came to the age, going back as an adult learner and appreciating learning just for the sake of learning, even though I understood I wasn't really going to use all that stuff. I think, you know, maybe for the older learners it might be more appropriate to expect that, but I don't know that there's many people in their, you know, early 20s that are pharmacy majors, maybe philosophy majors, but that are pharmacy majors that really appreciate what they learn just for the sake of learning something. They want to use it.
Maybe we should make everybody work for 20 years before
But they want to use it, but you can't use everything. I mean, but the thing about relevance is you need to sometimes learn the principles that are going to make that relevant thing relevant to you in the first place. So if you want to learn, for example, about AIDS, I need to teach you about T cells. You're going to ask me, what the hell are T cells? Well, T cells are a component of the immune system that you need and that for defense. So you got to go through all those steps to learn how these things become relevant. And if you don't understand that, nothing's going to be relevant to you. It's all interconnected. It's all, you know, it's like I don't go to high school and say, why the heck do I need to learn about Myanmar or about Europe or whatever? I don't live there. I mean, why the hell do I need to go and, you know, donate something to somebody in Africa? It's not relevant to me. That's not how I go about life. If that's the way I'm going to go about life.
It's not relevance, it's really building blocks. They need
Exactly.
these pieces of building blocks to become a pharmacist at the end.
Exactly.
This includes practice and chemistry and everything else.
Exactly.
To have that knowledge.
So you need the foundational blocks, and they may not understand how that's going to be relevant to them today, but they'll realize that it's relevant to them 20 years later. I tell them, like, you know, when I'm talking to you about cancer, right now, I mean, you may not know anybody who has cancer right now, but 20 years from now, when somebody comes in with a lymphoma to your pharmacy and asks a question, you're going to go back and say, you know what, we did learn about that in class. And that one incident alone may make the difference for you.
But Clinton,
So-
part of it is that the idea of the valuation of, you want them to try and get some of the valuation while they're here, which is the relevance. I think Jeff could probably agree. I know Baker and I have had this discussion. Is they devalue the social behavioral sciences. So you're nodding. You agree?
Yeah.
Same with Shamima. But when you get them out and you look at a graduate who's out like 2, 3, 5 years, and they call back to ask a question, they call back because they need to understand hiring, firing, training, retention, ADA-related issues, because will say, oh, you know what, I think I remembered someone saying that, but they don't understand the relevance. as a component of being a total practitioner, the whole piece. Maybe relevance isn't the right word, I don't know, but.
So an example of that is, like I said, we have a business plan is the culmination of my management class. And it's not the how to do a business plan, it's really a culmination of, really it's thinking through in a business mindset of whatever your business is through the marketing aspect, who your target market is, the financial piece, all of that kind of piece of putting it together. And so a lot of students don't like it. We know this, when you're in front of something, they're not going to like it. They don't think, why do I have to do a business plan? And we probably had, in the 4 or 5 years, probably average 1 or 2 students every year that at some point we'll see them or they will call or email and say, you know what, I was working, we were going to add this diabetes counseling thing and I had to do a business plan for it. I can't believe I actually had to do that. Thank you for, I know, and basically how to do it. And people that have said that, they hated it going through it, they didn't see the relevance. And they did. I mean, I know that you can tell them that at some point, if you're working in something to where there's lots of money involved, you want to propose to do something new, the person who is fronting that money is going to want to see a well thought out reason plan. They don't understand it at the time. You can't tell them enough to make them say yes.
Yeah, actually, I was trying to add to that. In the social administrative science, if you're a pharmacist, then of course you have the patient experience encounter. But I'm not a clinician. So what I found kind of to create the relevance is when I talk to them about my research. I do a survey of pharmacists about Part B. That's very relevant to healthcare policy. And when I talk about those things, I see them picking up. It's like these are what the practicing pharmacists are saying. So that helps when you can bring some component of what they're going to be in the future.
I mean, you can, yeah, sorry.
Well, I was just going to say something on the flip side of the relevance. Something that I've seen, I haven't taught that much, but something that I've seen is pharmacy students that work at Walgreens and the pharmacist they work with says, oh, you know what, I never use that subject in my practice. I learned that in pharmacy school, but I never ever use that. So there's also, I feel like there's that flip side of the battle of where they are actually out in the field and they're being told, I don't do that. And I think that's a challenging situation.
Well, the thing is, I mean, the field itself is so broad and diverse, especially like when you think of something like pharmacology, pharmacokinetics. I mean, they may think, when you say just a name, biochemistry, they may say we may never really use it. But you don't know, I mean, when they're looking at, one of those inserts or whatever, they may look at that structure, or they, and it's in there, they're subconscious. They're not using it as such, but they are. They just don't realize it, And I think that's part of the problem. It's you associate certain things just because of a title or a name, but if it weren't already in you because of what you learned, you wouldn't be doing many of these things. And that's and the reason why I was a little bit passionate about this is because in the last course we team taught, one of the IPCs, I had a student come and actually literally yell at me and say, why are we learning the pathophysiology of all this? Why do we need to know this? We're pharmacists, we just need to know about drugs. And I was just sitting there thinking, and I was like, look, I'm not a pharmacist, so I don't know how to answer this question to you right now. But, I mean, you can just go be a pharmacy technician and dispense drugs. I mean, how are you going to, if you don't understand the pathophysiology, how are you going to understand the mechanism of action of the drug? How are you going to understand drug targets? How are you going to, I mean, if you don't understand the disease the person's going through, I mean, what's the whole point of trying to be a therapist?
Yeah, but she doesn't know what she needs to know.
I know, but
being annoying.
I know, but that attitude, but that attitude seems to be.
Let's not get too specific.
It's pretty prevalent, and that attitude is pretty prevalent. That why do I need to know signs and symptoms of this disease? Oh, I mean, it's.
But she's
Not a pharmacist yet either. So.
I told her, yes.
Yeah, you're not a pharmacist, and if you would ever like to be one, get out.
I mean, what I suggested at that time, and there were other students there, when she like literally yelled this at me, and I was like, maybe ask Dr. Zimmerman or one of the other clinical pharmacists, but what I can tell you is from a pathophys perspective, a pharmacology perspective. But some of the other students came to me later on and said that was rude, like, the person yelling at you in class.
Yeah, next time just grab one of us and, we'll justify it.
Tuesday or Thursday.
And that's why, like, more recently, I've been a little bit more passionate about this relevant thing. Like, everything's not relevant. I mean, how do you teach pharmacokinetics and make every single thing relevant? How do you teach?
Well, watch it, man. Watch it, man. That's what I'm trying to do.
Pharmaceutics, that's what I meant.
Yeah, there you go.
You're making friends by the
You just better cut it out.
Yeah, I was just going to say, like, sometimes they come to realize that, for example, like in my pharmaceutics portion, they had some biochemistry stuff in your class that they were telling me, oh, we never understood why we are learning at that time. But when I was discussing the biopharmaceutics, absorption, percentage of ionization, Henderson Hesaba, then they could have seen the relevance of it. So they were like, oh, okay, no, yeah, at that time we didn't know, now we know that, why we needed to know that biochemistry part of it. Or like when we are talking about like the mechanism of the drug absorption, like active, transport, passive. So they don't see it when they studied in the biochemistry, but they are not just patient enough, just to see, okay, there is a reason that this topic is in the curriculum. So they ultimately are going to see the relevance. They just need to be a little more patient in terms of how things are going to build up together at the end to see the full picture.
To go back to saying that education is wasted on the youth.
Is it what?
Yeah, wasted on the youth.
Education is wasted on the youth. And this great education is wasted on the youth who don't understand.
No, I was just going to say that it all goes back to respect too. I mean, they need to trust that they're in a curriculum where the administrators put together a curriculum that is necessary for them to be successful in their field, not question every step of the way what's relevant and what's not.
Okay, so that we can get to some of these others. So I'm going to let somebody pick the number because there's maybe some of these you're more passionate about than others. Somebody pick the number and we'll discuss it. Texting. All right, so does texting show a lack of respect? So students in your classroom, texting show a lack of respect. Okay. So
Texting a faculty member or texting in class?
texting in class.
That doesn't show respect.
Okay, and so now we'll keep this. And I'm taking this actually from an article I read. I think it was on Student Time. I think this is where I got this. And so it was, does texting show a lack of respect for the student texting in class show a lack of respect for the instructor? So if yes, then do faculty or people in a seminar texting show a lack of respect or disrespect for me as the presenter? And so then, or is it just an extension of their life now? So that's sort of the question. So, I forgot who chose the question.
What if they're like looking up jobs, using their
If you're assigning them to look something up,
So in the experiential
but if they're
world,
conversing with somebody else in the class or outside of class, that's disrespectful.
in the experiential world, we'll tell them you're going to use your smartphone clear it ahead of time so that it's not going to be your word against somebody else who's calling you out on it. Say to your preceptor, I'm going to be using my iPhone to look up material, clear it. But yes, I would say it's the same level of disrespect if I sat there and texted when you were talking as if a student.
I don't find it disrespectful.
Okay.
I don't, I mean, I know our students are not supposed to have cell phones in the classroom. I don't even pay attention to it. I have been texting all day, which I'm sure you've seen. I don't find it disrespectful. To me, it's an extension of my life. I have 3 kids. I'm doing these things. I don't find it disrespectful. If I'm standing there talking to a student, and a student says, "Excuse me, I need to answer that." Okay, answer. I have patients who I'm sitting with in clinic, and their phone rings. If you need to answer it, please go right ahead. And I have had students on their it is right, it is where we're at nowadays, and I don't have a problem or an issue with that.
Cam? In all your examples you're giving, they either ask permission, but I'm saying, you're talking to me right now, I'm having a conversation, and I start going like this.
Yeah.
That's a sign that I don't really care what you have to say.
Well, but I would also, what are you doing? What's more interesting than what we're talking about?
Oh, sorry, you're saying?
Exactly.
So basically, and I'm saying that I'd rather actually see if anyone posting anything about the funny picture on Facebook than the words that are coming out of your mouth.
Which, if it gets back to the classroom, that's their prerogative.
So what you're saying is if everybody's doing it, it's okay.
No, but if that's their prerogative, they want to sit there and text, then sit there and text. You don't
But,
have
The
to
majority
text
isn't
me.
always right.
This is fine, I think at a one-on-one conversation when you're trying to talk with somebody, this is.
Well, not just that. I mean, I think for.
I've observed, I've sat through lectures, and I've observed when students, when faculty doesn't address the cell phone policy, the students, and that's from sitting in the back, they pretty much go from Facebook to texting, texting to Facebook, Facebook to texting. And I can't imagine that it does not result in poor performance.
That's their problem. Why
Yeah,
is it your problem?
Cam, what if they're texting each other in class and disrupting? That's a different issue, right?
Disruptive is a different story.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
Disruptive is a totally
If
different
they're
story.
like,
If you're going to ruin the environment for the rest of your peers, I
yeah,
have an issue with that.
then that's the problem. That's what I'm
If it's their own, then so be it.
If it's a legitimate reason, I can understand. If it's
What are we trying to do? We're trying to set up a situation for them to succeed. And that's it. And it's well, I'm assuming well documented, I don't know, I don't read the stuff, that if they're texting, their success rates goes down. So therefore, it's not a matter of respect, which I personally think it is. I think it is an insult similar to like when I took a German class, the professor found it disrespectful to wear a hat. It was an old school German style. You take your hat off when you come to classroom because it's a sign of respect for the person there. That's different thing. For me, it's like, you're texting, I know you're not listening, therefore you're not learning, therefore your grade goes down. I'm here to help you. I'm going to act as the father versus the creepy uncle to make sure that you learn. And that's it. That's my job. My job here is to give you the best opportunity to succeed. And I believe, and I haven't researched it, but I personally believe that texting while you're in my classroom decreases your chances of doing well. So first rule is, cell phones are not allowed, because that's just me trying to make sure you, as a student, will do better. That's all. It's not a respect factor. It's more of a one-on-one disrespect.
I think that's totally valid.
Yeah, I don't care that they're insulting me or not. I care more about how much they're absorbing. Really, that's what I'm all about.
Well, I mean, so basically what you're saying is it's okay for me in the middle of lecture to stop and say, oh, I got to text my son here. He just sent me a note, and then go back to lecture.
No,
That's,
they
you're
were
saying that's okay.
I'm not saying that's okay because I have
That's
a
what the
job
student
and
does
I have
to us.
been given a duty. And my job and responsibility is to do X. And so when I'm up there, that's what I'm doing. Now, if they're on the other end of that consumerism, then...
But it's their job and responsibility to pay attention to the
exactly.
material.
Right. It's their job and their responsibility.
So they shouldn't be texting.
If they can't figure that out, I'm not going to be the mother figure. I'm not that person. If they come to my office, they're on academic probation, and we go down that road. But to stand there and police that is not who I want to be. It's not what I do. It's not who I want to be when I'm up there.
And it's not like it's your teaching style, and it's not.
Exactly. Exactly.
I'm looking at it as yes, my job is as the father to make sure that, and that's it.
So it goes back to
It goes in different teaching styles.
and what do you perceive valuable, which, we could do a research on that.
It's our job to be informed of what's going on and announcements and things like that occur at faculty meetings. Does that mean we should not text at a faculty meeting or check our email or be on Facebook or anything?
But I think that's different.
I think it's a different context.
I don't think you can compare that.
amongst colleagues versus a classroom teacher.
Okay, but it's just sign of disrespect for coming to the classroom 15, 20 minutes late.
Yes.
Why?
Because it's disrupting me as a, I mean,
Well,
personally.
I'm sitting in the back, they're just coming into, you know.
I mean, that disrupts me, but not, doesn't disrupt everything.
But it's disrespectful, basically,
I don't know
based on
about
the word.
respect or not respect. I know, like, it makes me look to that side to see who's
What
coming in.
about leaving the classroom 3-4 times in the 15 minutes?
Jesus. In that case, I don't care. Maybe they're pregnant and have to peel out. I don't know.
Well, I was pregnant and I had to hold for 2 hours during the lecture.
What it means is the students need to be on control.
No, but things like that follow up, like, yes, beginning of class, I told them, my wife's pregnant, I don't know if she's going to be on, I'm keeping my cell phone here. The ringer's going to be off, because sometimes, you know, it vibrates, like, okay, yeah, I've been blocking that call for a month. But, you know, it's there. So they know that I have my cell phone out. I'm not texting or anything like that, but they know that if it rang, this is important, people, I'll answer it. You know, but I give them a heads up that I'm doing it. But other than that, it's never out, you know, except there's a clock. You know, and that's things, you know, it's because I respect the students as much as I expect them to respect me, which leads to another question, like, do you earn respect and stuff like that? It's like, you know, like, I come in with the perception that they respect me, I respect them, they don't have to earn my respect, I don't have to earn their respect, I respect them, they can lose my respect, but that's it, you know, I respect every one of you, just like I'm going to respect every other student. It's just, you can lose it by doing things that are coming in late, disruptive, and, you know, like that's the thing, is like, one thing about the Facebook is, you're there, you're doing it, okay, great, you're doing it, whatever. It's a student behind you that's looking at you. That's the one that I feel bad for, because it's human nature. You're seeing some flashy images there, you're going to be like, oh. And that's why, you know, like the whole allowing them, like, you know, we can assume block certain web pages. You can do it in businesses. You know, these are things that could be solved issues.
I thought we tried to, can't we not block them? Can't, see?
Why?
No, wireless.
Yes, but the thing is, my wife has wireless access at her work, and she can't go to Yahoo Mail, Gmail, gambling sites.
IT department.
Yeah.
So they can block them if we ask them.
Sometimes it's getting rid of email.
But even if you block them.
But the thing is, it's going to be difficult, like, when to block the... The thing is, you have to block it for 15 minutes and open it again for 10 minutes during the break.
We use the same browser that they
That's
use.
the problem.
Or we use the same.
Yeah.
There has to be a way around it.
Well, the only way I see is to, like, shut tablets.
Does it show a lack of respect using your phone? Because there are so many cool applications in your phone, right?
But am I
That's not the question. The question is doing it during class.
Yeah,
When you're
during
not
class.
being told to use it for something. If you're telling them to use an application on the phone for a specific thing in class, that's a totally different thing. That's okay. But should they be doing all that stuff while they're supposed to be paying attention to a lecture?
But is it the only devil's advocate that where I really do see both sides, because what about the students that aren't even there? Right?
What do you mean?
How am I going to know they're texting?
No, that's what I'm saying. What I'm saying is, as far as respect, is texting in class more disrespectful than just totally missing your class and they don't even care enough to wake up for it? I mean, I feel like both are, you know, you don't know that that student is sick, or maybe they just didn't really feel like it, or maybe they hate your class, you know? They don't hate your class. I feel like it's hard to say, because to me, both are kind of equivalent. So, you know, policing them in class, why aren't we policing them to come to class then?
I don't think in my mind it comes down to respect. It just comes down to, you know, how much they absorb. And for them, I truly don't believe that students actually think that they disrespect me when they text, because for them it's a second nature.
Right.
I truly feel that way.
Vibrate, you don't automatically detect those.
Right.
Well, it's hard to police every single one of them anyway.
You know, so they have to have it put away. I think it goes back to the conversation what we already covered. It's just, you know, how good are they at multitasking and yet absorbing the information.
Steven brings up a good point, though. I mean, sometimes there are such cool apps. I mean, you don't know they're going to it for social purposes. I sat at one of Sushin's lectures a while ago, and and he said something that I hadn't heard of or thought of before. I immediately started Googling it because I wanted to squelch my immediate interest to figure out what it was.
But they have their tablets, right? Why can't they just...
Talking, you just didn't know this one thing. So you can tune him out to the rest of the lecture and learn that one topic. Whereas everyone else, if they start doing it, they're missing the 90% that they don't know.
But then they can do it on their computer.
They have their tablets. You can just go.
And I agree with
Well, we know we're blocking stuff now, so.
we are blocking.
I'm just kidding, we're not.
But again, like, get back to Ken, like, remember I said it, right? I'm not disagreeing with your stuff. Now, say you have a student that is a notorious texter, okay? And they...
Is that like a real
it's a disease,
It's a creepy concept.
it's a condition. And now they come to you and say, yeah, I did poorly. Do you go, tough luck there, kid, you shouldn't have texted, or, well, what's your response to that?
Just what you said, tough luck. If you weren't so attached to your phone, you might have paid attention.
So it's basically, you're not going to be the touchy-feely at the end.
No.
Okay.
I'm not touchy-feely.
Not Pam.
All right, folks, in the interest of time, this has been a fascinating talk about texting. I would like to remind everyone that technology policy that we have in the handbook says no phones out during class time. Now, if you choose to enforce that or not, that's your decision, but you do have the power to tell people to put phones away. And if you request that and they ignore you, then you may write them up. And that is a code of conduct violation. So you have the ability, as instructors and faculty, to tell people to put the phones away if you want to.
Should have spoken up earlier.
He was texting.
And we're dismissed. Next time.
It's not the phone though.
I'm just joking.
All right, so let's take, since Matt, we'll take it right
I think it's clear there's several different viewpoints on this. It's I'm like him. I don't even notice. I mean, I don't care. I'm kind of in my own little zone when I'm up there. I think if it wasn't texting, it would be something else. You know, I think crossword mover students or crossword puzzles, and you don't have to be engaged if you're in class. And in the days before cell phones, you've done other things. I mean, you pass notes.
Yeah, but passing notes is worse almost, because then that's really disruptive to everybody.
It's the same sort of thing, though.
I know, but that's even worse.
I think part of it too, though, relates to the boundaries under which we do it, and the boundaries of professionalism, and how it relates to respect and links to professionalism, because what we may or may not think we would allow or permit or find acceptable in this building becomes changed if they're out of the building. For instance, one of the biggest complaints I hear from the pharmacists about other APPE students, because they haven't seen ours yet, is phone unprofessionalism. I was trying to find the student to go talk to a patient, and they were sitting in the back texting. And I hear these different things all the time, and it's a huge complaint. So I think we have to put it in context. And if setting an appropriate professional response here means they carry it out, because and that measure of professionalism is probably what's going to get them a job as much as anything else, then that's something we have to think about how what we do here does translate into the world.
And I find it interesting that our policy and procedure says no cell phones. Our experiential policy and procedure says no cell phones. But if it's not enforced here, how
Yeah, again,
how are we
it's that
expecting
demo
to
freedom. I think we should
enforce it out there?
in your match camp, they were okay with their academic freedom. That's why I think it's very important.
I mean, the cell phones is one thing too, but laptops are just as distracting. I mean, on our IPs the other day, the preceptor had assigned them to work on their journal clubs in the library. I walked in to check on them, and they were watching videos. I'm not even kidding. I was like, what are you guys doing? I mean, they were showing each other videos of different places in the world that they wanted to visit or something. And he actually admitted, he's like, oh, we're just surfing, I wanted to show her I wanted to go on vacation. Okay, cool. So I mean, I feel like they weren't on their cell phones, but they were on their laptops, and it was just as bad or distracting. So.
Okay, let's change it then. Let's change the topic. Well, I found the hot button topic, so
There's no answer.
So somebody else pick another one.
We had quite a bit of, oh, sorry. We had quite a bit of discussion on 3 and 6, so if anybody.
Okay. Any preferences?
For 3, like, I felt, for example, that it's not okay for students to disengage and not attend class just because they get an A in the course, but some other people thought, why not? They're getting an A anyways, they've learned the material. They just won't be disruptive to other people. So
and your reasons for why you don't think it's okay?
well, because I think the entire course is a cohesive unit. There might be things I might be covering in class, that they may not have got. But just getting an A does not reflect that you've learned everything. You could be a 90 and get an A as opposed to 100. Okay, there's, somebody could. But potentially that would be sending the message basically that the class is all about just getting grades. And if you get an A, you're all set. You don't need to learn. You can learn another way. So that's my problem. But
each person learns differently. Yes. Yeah. There are those who, like I always do this, my field is very simple. There are 3 forms of media. The textbook, my lecture notes, and me talking. Each one should stand alone, should give you enough material. And sometimes the problem is you're not going to gain anything out of it because you're book smart.
Yeah, but
and sometimes some people will never pick up a book, yet they'll still get an A, and they actually know it as well as someone who read the book. So I'm not going to criticize anybody. It's like, in the end, it's my job to give them the correct assessment tool, in our cases of exams, versus a laboratory. And if they know the material, then why am I going to say anything but you earned the A?
No, but it's not criticizing them, but it's going back to what Lucia said earlier, was that, isn't somebody not attending class and being disrespectful just the same as texting? Just because they passed the assessments, they learned the material, they got an A, okay?
We don't expect them to learn 100% of the material. If we expected them to learn 100%, C wouldn't be passing, You can't expect, you always hope that they learn more.
No, it's a question of, it's not, that's what I'm trying to say. For me, it's a question more of respect. It's a question more of the course itself is a cohesive thing.
The thing is, personally, I don't, if they're getting A's, personally, I think they're clearly learning the material, but it's just probably not that common that many students could miss that much class and still get A's. We're having an attendance problem, but not a lot of students are getting A's. So.
Right. In fact, most of the students who get A's are the ones who attend.
The ones in our case, but this is, in this case,
this is a hypothetical question,
there
right?
Might be some.
If they're just.
You're gonna have some really intelligent students.
Yeah, they just
really
listen to
good
the lecture. Maybe they read the
Yeah.
textbook and they don't need you.
In part, it boils down to what the nature of the course is and what constitutes success. So, if success means you just need to pass the
exam to get an A,
fine. If that's not what constitutes success in the course, and that you need to be much more engaged in the course, you need to be contributing to discussion and asking questions. If that's part of what it means to be successful in the course, then
it is, because my assessment may not cover everything that, case.
For some courses that's the case, for some courses it's not.
What do you think, Jeff? I'm here for a reason. Yeah, I've been pushing it back on you all day, haven't I? I haven't really told you anything.
The ones who don't attend class that get A's we're concerned about. I think it's the ones who don't attend class that get C's. That's a different story.
And much more like you.
Nothing set across the curriculum for each individual faculty. My attendance policy is, we're here, we're providing you the opportunity to learn. You pay for it. You're paying a lot of money for it. You can choose to come or not. You can choose to pay attention or not. and it's your responsibility. So we actually kind of tend to treat the class in some respects, not all the way across, but since this is a business and management class, more like a business and management. So you have responsibility to show up. If you don't show up and then you perform poorly because you don't get the points for that day, well then that's, you accept that responsibility.
So you get points, you do like little mini.
We have activities, yeah. So there are, and so in some respects, a lot of times we have a semi-flipped classroom model where they're doing things in class and it is for points. Sometimes some of it's graded, some of it is not. And they don't really know when it's going to be. So we never take attendance to take attendance, but there are activities and things to do. If you don't do it, then you have to get points. That drives attendance. I mean, they come to a class because they don't know whether they're getting points or not. And like I said, it's the total across the semester is 100 points out of 500, so it's 20% of their grade. But a lot of it is, like I said, it's activity based. It's homework. It's homework in class. Is what a lot of it is. So to answer your question, Eric, okay. So I had mixed feelings on this. I will say if a student can attend class or not attend class or they're disengaged and get an A, then I would look, for me, then I'm going to say, okay, I'm doing some assessment wrong. If they can't do that, I mean, I would look at maybe there are other students who can somehow learn it otherwise. They can, as the term goes, they can learn in spite of me and everything I can do, they can still learn. But if they're not paying attention or not coming to class, especially a student who doesn't come to class, because we don't really have textbooks, we're not really going out of the textbook. So it's not like they need to read the textbook and get it. If they don't come to class and they can get an A, then I'm looking back at me and saying, okay, I'm doing something wrong assessment-wise or teaching-wise because, well, why do they even need me? Well, why don't everybody just stay at home and I don't do anything and then they still get the A. So that's my first thought on it. So that is my one nugget for that. Okay, so I had this and that question. Go ahead.
We have ecosystem here, so that means you can use the same lecture like anytime you want, like, you know, this is a different.
Right, so that is different. So if the echo recording is there and they can stay at home and watch it and get the A, then I would be fine. I wouldn't like it.
The question is, why should we even bother coming to class?
Why don't we just record them?
If you get an A.
Why don't we just record them on our own time?
This question is asking about 1 out of 75 and 1 out of 80.
Right.
Why would you have 130? It's not asking the whole class. It's one person.
Yeah, I don't know. What would that look like across the board? Probably not across the board. People think that some individuals maybe they can.
Because people have taken a class. You could have a biochemistry major come in and take biochemistry, and they can get an A by showing up to the test.
No, it's true. They can.
They were happy assessing outside the class.
I mean, I was reading the question more as, is it respectful? When you said, is it okay? I was reading it, is it respectful? And not to say success. I mean, yeah, somebody can study everything from a textbook and still be successful. But to me, it's disrespectful that, you know, just because, I mean, you're just making it all about grades then. That's the message I'm sending, that, yeah, it's not about actually being in class and learning and learning with the other students. It's okay.
So let me ask one.
I don't police it. I have a number of people who have not attended my class in the last year. I don't go around policing them.
Just as an aside, because we just met for Academic Standards Committee, but those students that have fell into probation, in the fall and this year, we started implementing some things in their academic plan. Like they have to sit in the front 2 rows. This last time we just put an additional. This current session, we put on a few learners academic plans that they have to attend 90% or greater. Now, we will be doing spot checks, so that they have to do that. Other ones have no tablet devices allowed in class. So those ones that are falling below certain academic standards, who have identified, even some of them have self-identified that the technology is a distraction. We've put in place curbing mechanisms.
You're protecting them from themselves.
Exactly. And should they not follow those things, that we would have little compassion if we see them again at our committee.
All right, so I want to end with kind of one question. This is going to help. So a question from one of your junior faculty members. We were talking about being personal and personable in the classroom to get the students to know you and sort of make that comfort level. So as a junior faculty member, that can sometimes be hard to gauge. Okay, so how personal do you get? How do you know when you're not going too far? So I said I would pose this question to the more seasoned faculty members of, how you approach it, where you kind of draw the line between, faculty and students. So the seasoned faculty members know who you are.
Jim doesn't.
I can't remember. What are your thoughts from Dr.?
It's a fine line. It's a really fine line in terms of what you can and what you can't do between you and the student. And certain things are off limits. And so for me, I don't give them my phone number at all, but I'm available anytime in terms of emails, my campus phone. They can contact me, but I'm not having them text me, email me, through my regular phone. It'll be my address at home, something like that. We don't go out together just as a small group. We do it as a big group with multiple faculty, but not individual. So there's certain things that are definitely
Okay. Anybody else want to add to that?
No Facebook.
No Facebook, okay?
Or LinkedIn for me.
Nope.
Or LinkedIn.
Not until they graduate.
Correct, I'm the same one.
Okay.
They'll send us any invitations.
I haven't responded to any.
Yeah. But you're,
So the way I handle that, I teach last semester, third year, so I typically don't get friend requests from people, younger than that, so it's the last semester. And I will tell them, beginning the class, just up front, when we're really, and I leave this in the discussion when we're talking about this Facebook group, so that's kind of an easy segue. I say, I will not accept a Facebook friend request from you while you're in my class. My personal policy, everybody's different, just once you're finished with my class, then if you still decide you want to be my Facebook friend, you can send a request on mine, I obviously will never request it. But at that point, they're getting ready to go out on rotation. So they're basically out of my purview. I don't get that many. And usually the ones I get are the ones that I've had some other relationship with, a mentoring relationship, otherwise. But that's sort of how I kind of handle that thing. What else? Any other pieces of advice?
But then with Facebook, if you did friend somebody, then their friends can see you, and maybe that's, I don't know, complicated or invasive.
Yeah. You better just stay away from Facebook.
Well, then there are issues with it.
And so that's a completely different, we go talk about Facebook and friending, and I can go all day. You don't make me start because I'm winding down now. So we can go all day on that and the different caveats, nuances, and positives. And there are positives, and there are negatives, and we all each weigh them ourselves. So it's 4:15. One of the good rules speaking is never go late, end a little early. So is there anything I'm here, any questions you have for me that I haven't answered, which I haven't answered, or Eric's answered one question today. If you've got other questions, I hope that you've gotten something out of this. It's kind of us describing this as trying to hit every aspect some way, some shape, form, or fashion. But any other questions, comments? Everybody's afraid you don't want to be that one person that makes this go.
That's a real quick one to wrap it up.
Okay.
So I guess I want to know what is the ideal end goal here? I mean, we don't really want a classroom full of 75 Hermione Rangers, right? I mean, that would.
Oh boy, I don't know.
So what? I mean, when do we know we're
you've got success? You get success.
Yeah.
So for me, I'll tell you this for what when I know I've got them engaged enough, is that when I'm talking to them, that the majority are looking at me. The majority, people are going to look at them, they're going to write notes. And then when I ask questions, that there are people who want to answer, that several people that will answer, and that will play off each other. So it's not just me. So that's how I know when I feel success is when they're doing that. And I ask questions, and there are answers that come back in multiple answers and from different perspectives in different ways. I don't really care if it's the same person. I want a good percentage. But I don't know, others may have a different view of what, but for me, that's it. If I had 130 of these, that would probably drive me crazy. I don't know how I could handle that.
The way I feel it works is when you come out of class and you feel like you had a good conversation.
Okay.
You know, you come out and you feel like, gee, you know, everybody kind of was talking and you had a good conversation. It feels like it was a good day then.
So you sort of know.
Yeah.
All right. That's it. Thank you for having me. Enjoy it. Thank you very much. Basically, you did all the work, so I think